And okay, happy Tuesday. I know right now, depending on where you are across the country, you are, maybe closing out the end of the school year. Some of you still have weeks to go. I know around me, we're down to days, and I think tomorrow is the last day for students, actually, and it's a half day. So I know how everybody's definitely all excited about the summer break. I can always remember one of the things when Kendall was much younger that I was excited about was not having to check a backpack every night. That was one of the things I used to look so forward to when we would go on a break, is not having to check the backpack and not having to make a lunch. So those were two of my things or whatever that were the highlight of going on a break, rather it was summer break or, a different break, spring break, winter break, something like that. But what I wanted to talk about has to deal with, preparing for this transition, going from the school day, and it's been kind of wonky, I'm sure, closing out the school year with testing and a lot of award ceremonies and half days and everything. And now it's time for you to figure out your summer and how things are going to go. And maybe you have put together something and you have a camp you're going to be sending your loved one to, if they're going to be staying home. It's just different things that you may have planned for the summer. But I want to give you a couple of things to kind of help you when it comes to supporting our loved ones that are on the spectrum. Because one of the things we have to remember is predictability, routine, structure helps reduce anxiety. So as much as, we want to have a lazy summer and do absolutely nothing, we've got to keep in mind that we've got to keep some structure somewhere along the way so that it allows our loved ones that are on the spectrum to know what's going to happen and not just hit them with surprise things. So here are a couple of things I'm going to go through to kind of help you with this summer transition. So yes, you can have some laziness to it, but here are a couple of things to just kind of keep in mind. So in having that laziness to it, yes, you don't have to get up and get out of the house at a certain time in the morning to get to school. But some of the things you can keep the same. Try to make sure you keep that bedtime and bath time the same if possible. Lunchtime, if you want to stick to a time in the morning to get up. Those are things, if they're going to be at home, to definitely make sure you can keep consistent. So even if they go off to a day camp or a summer camp or visiting someone else, what you want to keep in mind is to try to keep some predictability to the day, even though it's summer. And when I say some predictability, some of the easier things to do a lot of times are to make sure that nighttime routine is consistent. So yes, you can, kind of have a lazy summer, but try to keep some parts of the day, structured and consistent. One of the things that can also help with that, depending on the cognitive level of your loved one that's on the spectrum, it could be a calendar. It could be a visual schedule. So for Kendall really likes to see on a calendar what's going to happen. So we, definitely still use a calendar. Even right now, I put something on a calendar and she was ready to question something about next month because she thought what I put on the calendar for tomorrow was going to cancel out her going to the movies next month. But that's just kind of how her mind operates. So we still use a calendar so she can see upcoming dates so that it's not about catching her off guard. So for your loved ones, if you're planning trips, and they understand a calendar, use a calendar. If you need a visual schedule before the school year ends, ask the teacher for a template that they've used this year that maybe you can't use as well, and make adjustments to the time and for the day so that you can provide that predictability and that structure. Keep in mind, yes, you can have a lazy summer, but we still want to really and truly try to keep some structure in place where we possibly can. So that's one thing, the calendar or a visual schedule to let let your loved one know what's going to happen. But nighttime routine, try to keep that as consistent as possible. It's only going to help you because they'll know what time is going to be bath time and what time is going to be bedtime. So keep that in mind when we're starting to think about our lazy summer. Keep some structure to some areas. Another thing to keep in mind, to look at if you're plan to visit some places, to do some research, to have an idea about the place. And when I say do some research, somewhere you may think maybe a really cool place to visit, something I'm considering, like I think there's a balloon museum or something going on around here right now. And to look into it, and I think Kendall will be okay, but I'm always looking at what's my escape route. And I know some people are like, what do you mean? If things become too much for her, I need to make sure I have a plan of what to do so that she doesn't reach a point of being overloaded with reaching sensory overload. So if you're looking at visiting some new places, just do some research and kind of get an idea to know if you need to find a quiet space, if the venue becomes a little too noisy. It could be outside somewhere. Maybe you're going to the zoo for the first time. Maybe you're looking at something inside. But just do a little bit of research into the place you plan to visit. And then depending on, once again, your loved one, you want to talk to them about what the visit will, involve, what you're going to do. So let them know if you're talking to them about it, maybe you need to have some pictures. But the goal is to just try to avoid those surprise moments. So if you're thinking about the zoo and this is the first time, then you really want to talk about the zoo and let them know these are some things they're going to see at the zoo. These are some smells they may smell at the zoo. Smells are a sensory thing as well, and we forget about that sometimes. But we just want to make sure we are not catching our loved ones off guard. So keep in mind, do a little bit of research so you know what to expect and that you can actually let your loved one know that's on the spectrum what to expect with this new adventure. Now, another thing to keep in mind is in preparing for some adventures you may take this summer, make sure you have a sensory kit. Make sure you have put together the things you know you need for your loved one. If sunlight is a concern, then you really want to make sure you have a pair of shades with you or a hat. If you know that for them that they are, sensitive to sound, we talk about that a lot, that you have things in place where if you have their headphones, if it's earplugs, whatever the case may be, because it's going to be loud. If you know they're going to need a fidget item, if you know that they need something that's going to be weighted throughout the day to use, those are things you just want to make sure that you have prepared for that visit and that you have a sensory kit that's ready for them. So maybe you haven't taken a look at your sensory kit in a while. This is the moment to take a look at it. If you know that there's a device that they need all the time and you haven't checked the batteries on something, check the batteries. You just want to make sure that you are prepared and not that you kind of show up somewhere and just let whatever happens happen, because that sometimes can be a very, terrible situation that can happen when a lot of it is preventable. So as we're thinking about the summer, this is the time, if we want to try some new places, we just want to make sure we're doing some research so that we know a little bit more about the place we're going to visit, and we talk about it to our loved ones to prepare them, and then that we prepare for any possible sensory concerns that may come up from the visit. Now, something else to keep in mind, because it's summer months, a lot of places may actually have sensory hours that they're doing different things. It could be movie theaters. It could be some gaming places or whatever. And just call and ask. And believe it or not, maybe they never thought about it. So it's an opportunity for you to bring it up and say, hey, have you considered opening an hour early just once a month or maybe once a week, and talk to them about why. A lot of time, we assume all businesses should have an awareness of autism and kids that are neurodivergent, but we can't just make that assumption. It's okay to have that conversation and explain to them, this would be a cool thing. There are a lot of parents who really could benefit with not all the sounds being on when we come into the gaming place, not all the lights going, that type of thing. So call ahead and see if they have sensory hours. And if they don't, inquire and, talk to them about possibly getting sensory hours set up for their business. So that's something else to keep in mind for the summer. Then another thing is you want to try to make sure as well, this is not a teach the whole summer type of thing, because we all we need a lazy summer, but we want to try to make sure that the skills we know that our loved one, they can do, we allow them to continue to do, that we don't just take everything away and we do everything for them and they don't have to do anything at all. So if we know that they, have been getting their lunch on their own and opening their juice boxes or whatever the case may be, they need to continue to do those things during the summer as well, and not just, I'll just do everything for them. So whatever skills are there, continue to use those skills, because the goal is always independence. That's what it's always about for all kids. We all want our kids to have independence and that they are able to do things without us, but we've got to remember, in order for that to happen, you have to practice that just like anything else. So if we know they have skills, let's make sure we're still using them over the summer. And maybe it's, you can try something to increase a skill. You just never know. But it's all based on your loved one and where they are and what the skill may possibly be. I can tell you right now, we are doing a lot more with trying different things with Kendall in the kitchen in different places, just to kind of get a feel for things. But it's always we're always learning and improving. And she's 22, she'll be 23. So it doesn't just stop when you feel like, oh, they've reached an adult age or they've aged out of school. You still continue to build upon where they are and trying to, see growth. Another thing to keep in mind is, and this one was a big one for us when Kendall first started to communicate, and this can be a battle sometimes. Kendall's first word was cup. That was her first word. And once she said it that one time, in order for her to get a cup, she had to use that word again. So if they're using that word, rather it's verbally, rather it's sign language that they know, or a device, if you don't make them use their communication, their skills, their verbal skills, rather it's through a device, rather it's through sign language, they're not going to use them. So if you know they are able to communicate with you about something, allow them, make them. Because Kendall can be very lazy when it comes to the words she will use. She'll use the fewest amount of words to try to get you to do something. And we have to stop her and sometimes tell her to slow down, or that we don't understand, because we know that she's capable of formulating a sentence a lot better than what she is doing. So it's not that we're being mean. It's just that we know what she's capable of. And she's just like any other child. She's going to take the easy approach. And the easy approach is, if I can just say 2 words and you get it, I'm going to just say those 2 words. So keep building our communication skills, even though it's summertime. A lazy summer does not mean everything stops. So hopefully with the different things I talked about for the summer, that, it'll reduce some of the anxiety. We just got to prepare for it. Unfortunately, like some of our friends, they can just let their kids do whatever. We've got to think a little differently if we have children on the spectrum, that we've got to have some order in our homes so that they are comfortable, and, home is a safe space. That's a big thing. Remember, they should always feel like home is their safe space. And if, at this point, you're trying to figure out where in the house for them probably is that place of, their real safety place. Depending on who they are, just communicate. Ask them, what's somewhere in the house that you feel like if you need a moment, where would you like to go? So just make sure you understand home should be a safe space. If you haven't subscribed to the newsletter, please subscribe. I've listed the books that are currently available. There actually is a new book that I have finished, and I know people are like, you're churning out books. I'm churning out what I'm supposed to be putting out, because they're coming out more than just from me. So basically the Lord has laid it all out, and it's just a matter of me putting it together and going to print. But it's me using everything I've learned over the years of parenting and my years in the school system to try to provide a resource. And so the latest book, which is book number 4, basically deals with all of the things as an autism parent sometimes we don't realize we need to know, but we should know. And that's that book. The book is focused on, and I'll do some videos about it much later, a little bit later, this week or next week, to really kind of introduce the book. But the current 3 books that are available, of course, are our story that's available on Amazon. Then we have Building Bridges, which is a support workbook introducing a lot of, autism terminology and some strategies of support as well. And because for me, it's all about the cohesiveness of making sure that the caregiver is also supported. That's where the mindful activity books come into play, because I realize all parents need to make sure you're carving out time for some self-care. And that self-care does not have to be, a long hour, moment. The book I have created, Refresh You in 10 Minutes, really just requires 10 minutes, and it really could be 5. And so it's in a hardback form and a digital form. And there also is, I think I posted today maybe on the page, a freebie for you to get a couple of sample pages for the mindful activity book. So those are the things I definitely want to make sure I talked about tonight on this wonderful Tuesday. One of the other things to keep in mind is this is a great opportunity during the summer, the same way you're going to be probably doing some driving tests for, your other children, that you look at making sure you get a state ID for your loved one that is on the spectrum. It does not matter their intellectual ability. Everyone deserves a state ID, something that looks just like your ID, and that's what we have, and not just the school ID. So look into what you need to do this summer so that you can get a state ID, and put it on the calendar so that they are aware that it's going to come up and what they're going to have to do. And, look into what the hours are and explain to them what it may be like, the experience for them to have to sit and take the picture and everything. But this is a great time during the summer to actually take care of getting that state ID. Also, parents, make sure you're keeping up with your own medical appointments. A lot of times we're so busy scheduling everything for our kids that we don't realize the things that we need to take care of. So if you have not, I did a video about it today, mammogram, please make sure you're keeping up with your yearly mammogram, depending on your age. It's a lot of other tests. The older we get, the more we need to have done. But we've got to make sure we're not just scheduling everything for our kids and that we are letting our health fall by the wayside. So those are the things that, I wanted to talk to you about because we're preparing for this summer. And we want to prepare and not allow anxiety to take over, and we just don't put anything in place because we're overwhelmed. It's not a lot. It's just a matter of just putting some consistency, some predictability to what's going to happen during the summer. So once again, if you haven't signed up, please make sure you sign up for our newsletter. I typically send out something once or twice a week, and it provides a lot more information than I would have discussed during this live video chat. I'm going to put the email address again in the comment section so that you're able to go back at a later date. And if you have not subscribed to the newsletter. If you have not, this is a great time right now over the summer as well to gain new knowledge, to grab a copy of Building Bridges, and also be on the lookout for the information about the new book that is going to be released, because for me it is all about taking everything I've learned along this journey and helping parents so that they're able to gain information quickly, because I know time is limited. So for me, it's not about chapter books, it's about quick resources to give you a lot of information in one packed book, and that's what it's all about for me. So make it a great one, and I will see you all again soon in these Facebook streets.